But now let's get into that first story, man. From Timcast.com. Pennsylvania court strikes down mail-in voting law. A U.S. district court in Pennsylvania has ended an extension to mail-in voting provisions, which drew criticism during the 2020 elections. Let me try and give you the quick version of this, because boy, is it a doozy. In 2019, Republicans wanted to get rid of something called like now I can't even think of the phrase. I'll put it this way. Republicans didn't like the fact that in Pennsylvania, you could go in, press one button and vote for all Democrats. So they said to the Democrats, get rid of that. They said, okay, we'll get rid of that if you give us universal mail-in voting. The Republicans said, we can't. It violates the Constitution. And they said, well, we'll do it anyway. We'll amend the Constitution. Give us universal mail-in voting. The Republicans said, we agree. 99% in the House, 98% in the Pennsylvania Senate of all of the members agreed on this and passed a law in violation of the state constitution. Now, in comes the primary elections, in comes Congress and the presidential elections, and some Republicans take notice. Hey, wait a minute. How did they pass universal mail-in voting when it's actually in violation of the state's constitution? The state constitution outright says absentee voting is for these specific reasons. But what Republicans and Democrats had worked a deal on was universal mail-in voting. So they went to sue, and the judge said, you guys wait until after the primary and after your guy lost to try and challenge this law. You could have challenged this beforehand. And there's an interesting point to be made there, but I don't think it matters. I think the problem is the Democrats got swindled. The Republicans agreed to a deal they never had the right to promise the Democrats in the first place. So now here we are. It is a year and a half or so, a year and a few months later. And now a state court has said, yes, the Constitution outright says, here are the specific reasons for absentee ballots. You cannot pass this law. Here's the kicker. Democrats and Republicans alike have agreed on a bill to amend the Constitution to make universal mail-in voting constitutional. It would require 2 back-to-back sessions where they approve this. That's not possible to do in one legislative session. So what they decided, I guess, was we'll approve the amendment, which won't go into effect until a second legislative hearing and a referendum from the public, and then we'll just pass universal mail-in voting anyway. Surprisingly, I believe it was 11 of the Republicans who actually voted on that law for universal mail-in voting were involved in the lawsuit saying it was unconstitutional. So I got to say, the Republicans are kind of dicks in this moment, but I don't think that matters. We can smack talk the Republicans all day and night. The law is unconstitutional. Now, here's where it gets crazy. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania is, I believe, five judges, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. And so it is widely believed that the Democratic Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is going to just say, nope, it's constitutional regardless of what the Constitution says. And if they do, you're going to have a law on the books, as you do now, which says you don't need an excuse for mail-in voting and a Constitution that says you can only have mail-in voting for these reasons. Ladies and gentlemen, this country's imploding. Anyway, guys, how are you doing?
So what's that, like 8th grade civics? Right, the rule of the courts are to interpret the laws, not to make them.
Yeah,
and it is the judicial activism is the end of checks and balances. So
it's a Friday.
Hey man, I'd rather like what I say before we went on air. Worst country in the world except for all the others.
Yeah.
What do you do if the judicial system has become political?
Except that you are being ruled by appointed judges.
But I mean, there's got to be some sort of constitutional recourse to pull them out of office, I would imagine.
Well, actually,
only if the legislative branch asserts itself, which it hasn't been willing to do for the last 100 years anyway, right? I mean, we promulgate 28 pages of regulation for every 1 page of laws we pass, but they can take your liberty or your property for violation of a regulation. Therefore, it is tantamount to a law. That means that they've abdicated their responsibility to legislate, right? And why? Because it's more important to get reelected than it is to do. It's the axiom is there's 2 types of people in politics: those who want to be somebody and those who want to do something. And tragically, the be somebodies outnumber the do somethings like 10 to 1.
Yep.
And tragically, pardon me, as a liberty-leaning guy, the vast bulk of the do somethings aren't on the right.
I think
it's true.
I think the simple way to put it is the system is falling apart. It's quite simple. If a judge on party lines can say, we don't care whether this is constitutional or not, you can't do this late, right? So initially, they told the Republicans who filed the lawsuit over it, well, it's too bad you guys did it. They were treating the individuals in the lawsuit as a party and not as individuals. That's the first problem. The judge should not say, your guy lost and now you're suing. So like my response would be like, my guy? Look, that's somebody else. It has nothing to do with my election. In fact, one of the guys suing, I think, actually won his election. So the judge first comes out the gate. The judges in general are just like, we're partisans and we know it. Now it goes to the next state court. And on the merits, they say, yo, the Constitution of Pennsylvania, there's a section on absentee voting. It says, here are the specific reasons you can have an absentee vote. It's like you're out of town on business, you're in the military, you're medically indisposed or whatever, but no excuse, universal mail-in voting, not allowed. So the court says, okay, you can't do it. Now the Democrats are coming out saying, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway. This is going to go to the state Supreme Court. And if they, on party lines, uphold the law and say the law's allowed regardless of the Constitution, you have a court saying the Constitution doesn't matter at all. We're going to do whatever we want on party lines. They've already used a party line vote in the first place. Republicans are the ones who made a bad deal. They swindled the Democrats in the first place. But this means that a judge can enact a law which favors Democrats, which will then result in your legislators who pass the laws being basically put in place by broken laws. The system is a hodgepodge of duct tape and bubblegum jammed together to hold stuff together. And we're all looking at it. And I got to be honest, it doesn't make sense. If this moves forward with Democrats in the Supreme Court being like, it's a state Supreme Court, not the federal, saying, no, we're going to let this law stand. I'm just like, yo, you guys don't have representative government anymore. You have appointed judges who uphold unconstitutional rules to allow their buddies to get reelected. No one's voting for, like, what's the point at that point?
Well, I guess a point could be that you might have a bout of corruption, and then after that, it gets back to normal and they're no longer corrupt. So just because one time there's a bunch of corruption doesn't mean that it's ruined forever. Keep that in mind. I
don't know, man.
Power never voluntarily relinquishes itself. Yeah. It doesn't. Power does not relinquish itself.
I think in like these judges they're human, so like they're morally shattered. If you get demoralized, mentally shattered judges, like you're gonna see all sorts of weird behavior.
The problem is the judges and the legislators are viewing every single person as a member of a tribe.
Big problem.
The judge initially outright, when the lawsuit happened, should have said, is it constitutional or not? Instead, they said, who is the person who's filing the suit? A Republican. Well, you're only trying to get points for the Republicans and I'm not, so I say no to you. Okay, well, that's not law. That's just tribalism. Look, man, I've been telling people we are in some kind of civil war. When a judge issues a ruling and explicitly states, your guy already lost, so you're doing this for that reason, it's like that judge is not ruling on the merits. He's ruling on the tribe. He's telling one tribe, you are not allowed. Okay, so what happens next? I mean, now you have the Democrats saying this court is Republican, so they're saying the exact same thing. Republicans are right. Our tribe wins. The next court's going to be Democrat. Democrat wins. There is no judicial system at that point. So, I don't know. Welcome to America. It's 2022. How you guys doing?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is just more undermining of more institutions. And from what I saw in 2020, there is no low that we can possibly reach that will not turn something partisan. Like the judicial system is not intended to be partisan in any way, but they're turning it into that, which is going to be a huge problem down the road. And maybe they don't see that as being the case because they're very short-sighted. But if you can use it against the other party, they can obviously use it against you.
And yet, if there is an institution, a foundational institution that has demonstrated that it seems to work still, it's the judiciary usually, right? We got the Rittenhouse verdict followed by the Arbery verdict, right?
Right.
And I was just watching both of them going, okay, they murdered that dude, and this kid, like, watched the video, like, I was impressed with his fire discipline, candidly.
Well, what dude got murdered? You're gonna trigger. I'm gonna get triggered.
Oh, you're gonna trigger Tim.
You're gonna trigger me.
The guy jogging in Georgia,
He wasn't jogging.
Might not should have been kicking through the houses, but
Yeah, he was a burglary suspect.
You shot him.
The prosecutor called him a burglary suspect. The only reason the McMichaels got convicted was because the judge gave the instruction to the jury that unless they had witnessed the potential crime taking place, they had no right to try and confront him.
And deadly force is never authorized for the protection of property.
Except Ahmaud Arbery grabbed the shotgun from the McMichael and fought him for it, which is dual possession, which resulted in him getting shot.
Which is a good argument.
And then they put the guy who filmed it in prison for life. From that point, you need to start. The whole Ahmaud Arbery question is, why is the guy who filmed it going to prison for life? You start to unravel the thread from there, and you realize the whole thing is a travesty of justice.
Wow. Dude, I'm so excited to be on this podcast. I think I was going to get like smoked in the first 15 minutes.
It's nothing. I'm not saying that.
But you get my point.
But
So at least as the facts were distilled from me, I thought that the system, that the judiciary had gotten it right. What their job is to call balls and strikes, and that kind of is politically dangerous because of the tribalism that you make reference to, but kind of the way I try to do it. Like, when my guy was in the White House and I was in Congress, I had a duty to say when I thought my guy was wrong.
Well, so the Ahmaud Arbery thing is actually a really great point to what we're talking about here. And it's why I think in many ways the Republicans are losing and probably will lose. But I do think there's a great potential for national populist Republican types, people who believe in America. Not, we have a big problem with corporatists, crony, conservatives who are just, rhinos, I guess. They call them Republicans in name only. The issue is when it comes to a story like Ahmaud Arbery, Fox News is more than happy to come out and just praise the ruling without looking at the facts because they want to earn some points from the mainstream media. It is said that there are many Republicans who care more about the opinion of the New York Times than their own constituents. That is why I think the Republican establishment is being gutted and ripped apart. The Ahmaud Arbery case being another example of this, where many Republicans came out and were like, see, this was a good ruling. And then we actually had a self-defense expert, Andrew Branca, as well as some other lawyers come on and break down the case. And we were like, oh, wow, that absolutely is not true. But why were so many conservatives willing to come out and defend that ruling? Well, I think it's because people on the right are, and many of them, they care more about the opinion, not just the Republicans, but individuals care more about the opinion of the New York Times than their own constituents. So you'll end up very often with Republicans being, demure and backing down, where Democrats go for the ultimate win.
Sure, right. What happens is Republicans take control and hold the line, and Democrats take control and push the football. And
absolutely.
And you get, it's hard to lose. It's hard to lose ground on the offensive.
Well, I want to give a good example to people because one of the narratives from the left and Democrats is that Republicans don't play by the rules, that Republicans are steamrolling and getting whatever they want, and Democrats won't fight back. Democrats repeatedly call for gun control. Republicans repeatedly call for not gun control. Mm-hmm. We continually get gun control laws. Where are the Republicans to call for repealing gun control? You see, right. Democrats say we want to ban these particular weapons. The left then says no one is coming for your guns. Waco disproves that. Then you get Republicans saying, we've already banned a bunch of guns. We'll stop here. Yep. No, Republicans. Right. How about you act like Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene and repeal the NFA, abolish the ATF, and start passing laws to repeal unconstitutional gun bans?
Yeah, absolutely. The contrast is astounding because you're absolutely correct that there are a lot of Republicans who care more about what the New York Times says than their constituents. It's also the case that there are many Republicans in general among the constituency who care about what the New York Times says more than any Democrat cares about what Fox News says. The left doesn't consume media that's generally catered towards right-wing markets and shape their thinking based on that, or determine which opinions they're going to be comfortable voicing in the workplace based on that.
Yeah, I'm still fairly optimistic though, because the uniparty establishment is struggling. It's
well said, right? I mean, so we've had one president who was elected without a party affiliation, and we were talking, I think, off air again. I loathe political parties.
Yeah.
And there are lots of people in Washington who I won't name because I'd like to make a living, who are in the party they're in because they analyzed the district or the state where they were running and said, this is the party I need to be in, right? They're amorphous. And that's exactly who will destroy this great thing that's been bequeathed to us, that this republic. So you should, if you won't divert from your party, then you shouldn't be elected, period, right? Well, number one. And number two, if you'll ever take a vote to get reelected, then you should never be elected to begin with.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.